Good morning and thank you for joining us. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which TAD's Makerspace is located, the Darug people of the Darug Nation, and to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We welcome our joint patrons, Her Excellency the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACQC, Governor of New South Wales, and Mr Wilson, and thank them for their attendance at today's happy event. I'd like to also welcome everyone who has taken the time this morning to attend the opening virtually. Our honoured guests include Julie Owens, Federal Member for Parramatta, Melanie Givens, State Member for Holsworthy, representatives from our corporate sponsors Suncorp and MFS, long-time supporters and donors, TAD volunteers and board members. Before we get started, I want to honour the memory of Lynette Morby, whose generous bequest has made this wonderful facility possible. Through her charity, we have greatly expanded our ability to use clever ideas to change lives of people living with disabilities. My name is Andrew Every, and I'm the chairperson of TAD. Standing next to me here is Dr. Anthony Lowe, our CEO. In our 45th year, I'm proud to be a third generation TAD volunteer, with my grandfather Alan working closely with our founder George Winston, and hello George, I think you're joining us today as well, and my father Neil, also a TAD volunteer. I believe TAD to be a remarkable organisation. It's an organisation that harnesses the ingenuity and expertise of our volunteers and staff to make a meaningful difference to the lives of people living with disabilities. Our mantra is clever ideas changing lives, and it resonates with absolutely everyone that we meet. This Makerspace, which we'll tour through shortly, was conceived by TAD staff as a state-of-the-art facility that would enable our volunteers to design, test and build high-quality assistive technology at a rapid rate. We wanted to attract new volunteers and create an environment that enhances the way that our skilled volunteers collaborate to change lives. Our recent Change-a-thon brought volunteers from all walks of lives to rapidly prototype new assistive technology, and what they built during the time astounded us. Last week was Volunteer Week, and the theme of changing communities, changing lives has a perfect link to our mantra of clever ideas changing lives. We're lucky to have our fantastic volunteers, and I thank them all. I also want to thank the staff here at TAD who have adapted to this new normal of COVID-19 and have used all their clever ideas to continue to change lives while complying with the spirit and the letter of the public health order. It has been a trying time, and your dedication and the results that you've gotten have been truly inspiring. Of course, it's now my pleasure to introduce Her Excellency Governor Margaret Beazley and Mr Wilson to officially open the Makerspace.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you especially for your acknowledgement of country. And thank you, Andrew and Anthony, for your invitation to be part of this new age, or should I say COVID age, opening of TAD Makerspace. I also would like to acknowledge the special guests here this morning, the Honourable Melanie Givens, Ms. Julie Owens, George Winston, the founder of TAD. George, this must be a wonderful day for you, and it's wonderful to make your acquaintance, even if it's virtual. And of course to the TAD board, staff, the volunteers, the supporters, the sponsors, the medicos, the physios and therapists who work alongside the clients. There are at least two ways of getting to know an organisation. The best way, of course, is to talk to its people, which we did last year at the reception here at Government House, where Dennis and I are this morning, and again on the 27th of April, when we had such an informative discussion with you, Andrew and Anthony. The other, and I suppose really the official way to get to know an organisation, is to read its annual report. And as this is an official and a very important occasion, I thought I should do so in anticipation of this morning. And I expected to see the usual mission statement, a vision statement, or perhaps that more modern statement of our values. Well, I think I underestimated what I was going to see in TAD's annual report. That wasn't the way, and it's not the way that TAD does things. It doesn't just copy things from other people. TAD's annual report opens on the first page with this succinct statement of its purpose: to provide personalised technology, equipment and services which change the lives of people living with a disability. Then came the intrigue. Indeed, we've heard a little bit about it this morning. The intrigue, TAD's mantra. An unusual term, I thought, not only for an annual report, but indeed for an organisation which makes things. So being a lawyer, I went and checked the meaning of the word. Mantra means literally a tool for the mind. TAD's mantra, clever ideas, changing lives, is thus the perfect encapsulation of the vision, the creativity, and the practicality which underscores everything it does, and which in turn is beautifully represented in your logo, a set of fluid, tubular, mechanical links. It's estimated that approximately 1 in 7 or 1 in 8 people in New South Wales live with a physical limitation which impedes their everyday living. For nearly 50 years now, TAD's volunteer designers and engineers, with their clever ideas and practical expertise, have demonstrated that personalised, custom-made equipment and assistive technology does, in fact, change lives, enabling people with a disability to live with greater mobility, independence and confidence, enabling them to be employed, to go shopping, to have fun, indeed, to play professional sport like Kim, whose seated throwing frame is enabling her to train for the 2022 Birmingham Commonwealth Games. How exciting is that? Our favourite piece of equipment when we first met at Government House last year was the joystick-controlled ride-on car designed by George Tillett. There was a 6-year-old driver of that car here that night, and I think the way he drove it, he was in training for the Bathurst 1000. One of TAD's more recent solutions, indeed one of its more recent unique solutions, was a horse saddle with a back support. Now that sounds simple enough, but for this young horse lover who couldn't use the left side of her body as she was recovering from a brain tumour and who had been bullied out of school, this unique piece of equipment enabled her to be back on her horse, all smiles and very confident. And in delivering over 30,000 affordable specialised pieces of equipment and technology, TAD and its professional volunteers have been generously supported by partners and donors who provide the necessary funding base for this very important work. Given the culture of this organisation, it's not surprising that TAD boasts extraordinary longevity amongst its volunteers and supporters. For example, one engineer has provided his service for 43 years. I don't know where he was when it started 2 years earlier, but 43 years, what a magnificent contribution. Another for 27 years, and so on it goes. Rapid development in technology with 3D printers, laser cutters, microcontrollers and CNC routers is aiding TAD's work in a way that could not have been envisaged a decade ago. The CNC router will enable TAD to modernise the manufacturing process of its adaptable solutions, and the 3D printer upgrade will enable volunteers from TAD's regional groups to upload files and print commercial quality components remotely, significantly increasing TAD's capacity to provide services to regional clients. This brings me to TAD's Makerspace. TAD Makerspace is an actual place which will facilitate scientific and creative thinking, partnerships with universities, problem solving and prototyping in a collaborative space, enabling TAD to design and create solutions that will, as your mantra tells us, change lives. Thank you to the TAD board, staff, volunteers and supporters. Clever Ideas, Changing Lives is about to enter a new and exciting era of assisting people with a disability. It is our great pleasure to now open TAD Makerspace. TAD Makerspace, you are now open for business.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency and Mr. Wilson, for opening the Makerspace. It truly is a very happy event and we thank you for your continued support. I'll now pass to Dr. Lowe to continue the ceremony.
So now we're going to go on a tour of the space and I'm going to invite some of our magnificent volunteers to help us go on that tour. First of all, Marco Colley, welcome. How long have you been volunteering with us, Marco?
I've been a volunteer for about 27 years now, with a short break when my kids were growing up.
And your background?
I'm a mechanical engineer with a computer science degree, and when I went into management I also got an MBA.
Fantastic. So Marco, one of our new spaces is TAD Lab, where we have our 3D printer. It's our innovation space and our event space. Can you tell us a bit about the 3D printer and also how it's helped with projects for our clients?
Sure, 3D printer is actually quite an advanced machine. It's quite large and allows us to print quite large things. We've been using it to produce standard components for some of the chairs and things that we do, but also for custom jobs for our clients.
Yeah. And what's a recent project that you've worked on for a client?
So we've built a custom cuff or support for someone who had a stroke. And it allowed them to ride their bicycle, which they couldn't do before that. It clips onto the handlebars and it manages to stabilise their arm so they can ride.
Excellent, thank you. So let me just produce this from my pocket, hand it to you. Tell us a little bit about this and the technology that we use to produce it.
So this is a circuit board printer.
Yes.
It prints using conductive ink, and it allows us to design circuit boards and then have them printed like you would at a manufacturer for really rapid prototyping and being able to try things, new things with our clients.
So before the circuit board printer printing these circuits, how would you have got these circuit boards made?
Well, you either build them by hand, which is a laborious process and it's really difficult to do more than one, or you would end up doing sending it to China to get manufactured, and that would be like a one month or 3 week turnaround to get them back. So it really does take a lot of the time out of that prototyping space.
Okay, thank you. And again, can you just talk about a project that you've done where you've used this technology?
Sure, we've done electronics projects, and in particular, we've done one with a dog feeder, a dog treat feeder, where the owner of the dog would be able to press a button and the dog feeder would actually produce a treat for the dog. This was being prototyped very quickly, and being able to roll it out and try different ways of doing it was very important.
So thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
Just wondering, Your Excellency, Mr. Wilson, whether you have any questions for Marco?
So the circuit board is made there.
Yes.
Who designs it?
So the volunteers would design the circuit board using a CAD system, and then that CAD system would output the right codes, if you like, for the printer to actually print it using conductive ink. It works very much like an inkjet printer or a CNC machine, where the head moves around and deposits the ink down on the board itself.
You'll be
So
very
what information do you put in the CAD system?
It's just like an electrical design. So it's basically components with joining wires between them or traces, and then that gets converted again by the volunteer into a design for a circuit board. The CAD system stops you doing designs that are invalid according to the circuit, and then you can send that to the printer and it prints. It's very good for surface mount components because it's very difficult and they're very small, and it's very difficult to do those sort of prototypes by hand.
And what size is the circuit board when it's completed?
That one is not a very big one, but you can. The printer will allow us to do probably about 20 by 10 centimetres.
Yeah, this is actually quite a small one.
That is, yes.
Very small. Yeah, that's extraordinary.
Thank you.
And the 3D printer.
Yes.
What material do you put through the 3D printer?
Generally plastic filament of some sort. We do in different colours. Generally it's PLA, I think, at the moment, but we have ability to print in all sorts of different materials. And again, that's part of the experimentation that we want to do, different materials for different jobs.
Right.
Actually, may I just ask a question, Marco? When you're thinking of these things, do you lie in bed at night thinking, oh, gee, this would be a good thing, or are you reactive to the requests that are made of you?
A bit of both. I often get a brief of what I need to do, And then I come up with an initial solution, and quite often wake up in the middle of the night with what I think is the right solution. So I think what you said applies.
We saw the we saw the 3D printer in operation in the orthopaedic research section of Westmead Hospital, and by way of experimentation, they were sculpting the heads of the staff and the on the 3D printer. They look very good, actually.
Yes, well, it depends on how the printer slices it up, obviously, because it can be quite rough, but I suppose for some people that would be the right kind of head.
You can have your own portrait gallery.
That's right.
So thank you. Thank you, Marco. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Mike Muir, and we're going to talk about the CNC Router, which you've had a lot to do with, Mike. So you've been a volunteer for a couple of years.
Yes.
And I believe you've got a PhD in electrical engineering, and you worked in the national electricity market.
That's correct.
Yes. So the CNC Router is a recent addition to our space, and we're basically using it to cut out components for our adaptable solutions, which is a range of adjustable products for children to sit, stand and be supported to work on fine motor skills. And the router itself was actually generously funded by the Raymond D. Purvis Foundation. So can you tell us a little bit about how it works, Mike, and the benefits for clients and volunteers?
Yeah, basically the machine takes a piece of plywood that's 2.4 metres by 1.2 metres and cuts it out with a very fast moving 18,000 revs per minute head that cuts through the wood, but it can also cut shapes in the wood as well. It has a very high level of accuracy, so fractions of a millimetre accuracy, and it's also very repeatable in terms of what it produces. It's also highly productive. It might take an hour to cut out a sheet, but a volunteer would take 10 hours to cut out the same thing. And so it means that we can create a flat pack that we can send out to a volunteer with all the pieces accurately cut, and they can put it together quite easily because it glues together very well because of the accuracy. And it's also repeatable, which means that we can offer it on our website as a standard product because it comes out the same every time.
Yeah, and can you just tell me, why do you volunteer for TAD?
Well, when I retired, I needed to do something.
Yeah.
So to get out of the house, I like the satisfaction you get from helping people.
Yeah.
Certainly people with disabilities just need a little bit of help, and then they can be part of the society that we really desire. So
yeah.
I feel really good about that.
Thank you. Well, I think you've encapsulated both parts of what we do, which is provide an opportunity for people like yourself to continue to use your skills and help people in the community. So that's fantastic. Your Excellency, Mr. Wilson, is there anything you'd like to ask about the CNC router or ask?
What's an example of the end product?
Well, in the adaptable solution space, tables and chairs that can be adjusted to fit a youngster, so that gives them the physical support with belts and so on and so forth that they need to work on the table. Mobility walkers, so things that help a child get up and walking, those sorts of things. But they look like really nice pieces of furniture. So one of the things about a disabled child in a house is if their furniture looks jury-rigged or amateurish, they'll feel different. But this furniture looks really spectacular, is the word I would say, once it's painted and sanded. And so it becomes part of the normal standard furniture for a house.
Yes.
Anthony, this may be a question for you. It's quite a serious question, although I can put it in a tongue-in-cheek way. I hope you've trademarked this so that IKEA doesn't get onto it.
Oh, well, that's an interesting question, Your Excellency. Actually, our philosophy is to be open source in what we do. So our volunteers volunteer their time and their intellectual property. We don't actually trademark that because we want to make it as widely available as we possibly can. And our sister organisations around the country also use our designs to help people as well. So our spirit, I guess, from our founding was as a kind of an open source provider of products and services.
Now that's quite wonderful, because if it's open source, that would suggest that the IKEA technology should be available to you, because you're doing them a favour and they would be doing you a favour.
Yeah, well, you would hope so. They have actually developed a range of solutions for people living with a disability, IKEA, so they've made some good inroads in that area.
Would you be able to copy that?
I don't know. I think we've got our own wonderful volunteers with their skills designing things, so that's how we operate.
It's interesting, you know, I did mention the culture of the organisation, but this actually just continues to, I suppose, underscore what you really are all about, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You know, our purpose is to, as we've said many times, is, you know, what we're about is changing lives of people who've got daily living challenges, and that's always front and centre for us. Okay, thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to introduce Terry Vickers. Terry?
Morning.
So,
Good morning.
Terry, you're you've been a volunteer for a couple of years now.
Yes.
You're an industrial electronics engineer.
Yes.
I know you said you didn't want us to mention this, but you did work for Rolls-Royce Aerospace for a while, and you're an electrical contractor in a variety of areas, including military and telecommunications, yeah?
Yes.
So, Terry, I know that you work with us on a couple of things, so we're going in a minute to talk about the stuff you do with Unique Solutions. But before we do, I'd just like to talk a bit about the Freedom Wheels custom bikes that we do. So we provide a range of bikes, trikes and recumbents for children, young adults and adults, and you mainly work on the trikes. But just tell us a little bit about the stuff that you've been involved with in the Freedom Wheels service.
Recently, I just completed a bracket system to fit on the back of a trike for the person with the disability to be able to put their mobility walker on.
Yeah.
So that was just completed recently. There's quite a few things that we've done.
Yeah.
It's all interesting, and I just feel privileged to be able to participate and help in some way.
And we've started recently doing electric assist or pedal assist trikes as well. Have you been involved in that at all? Or
no, that's more George.
More George, yes.
Yeah, I've been involved with other things. So.
Yeah, okay. And you also, of course, do Unique Solutions. So do you just want to talk a little bit about some Unique Solutions that you've done?
Yes. Recently I went out to visit a young boy that he was about 8 years of age, and his fingers hadn't formed properly on his hand.
Yeah.
And his mother is an archery champion, and he wanted to continue to do archery. But what happened was, when he grabbed a hold of the bow, he could pull the string back, and once the arrow went, the bow would fall away.
Yes.
So with the 3D printer, we made a device that was able to clamp around the bow,
yeah,
in order for him then to strap it to his wrist, and he could maintain that hold on the bow.
Yeah.
Also, it has a dual purpose, because he used to like riding his bicycle, so that was able to clamp around onto his bicycle handlebar.
Oh, right, okay.
And also enable him to be more stable on his bicycle.
Right, okay. So that's a great example of you know, a unique solution, and how the 3D printer actually enables us to do something that we wouldn't have been able to do before we had the printer.
Correct.
Yeah. And did you work with anybody else on that?
Yes, I'm fortunate in the fact that we've got so many good volunteers, and we can have 2 or 3 or 4 volunteers working on one project.
Yes.
Because it's great to have so many different
skills,
inputs and skills. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Terry. So you might just hand back to the Governor, Mr. Wilson, and just ask if you've got any questions for Terry, or about Freedom Wheels.
Terry, I think you said you had developed a structure for the back of a bike so that the person could take their walker with them. Is that what you said? I just missed it a little bit.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
You know, you just don't think, do you? I mean, you might be able to get from point A to point B, but if actually you want to then walk and sit somewhere or actually walk into a shop or something, you're not going to be able to do it unless you've got that extra support. So something so basic is just so important.
And the good thing is for us, the good thing for us is you can't go out and just buy one off the shelf. So it has to be custom designed and made. So that's good for us.
And indeed, that's our philosophy too, isn't it, Terry? If there is a commercially available solution, our therapists would simply recommend that. What we're
Correct.
about is the things that you can't get off the shelf.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So finally, I'd like to introduce Christo to talk about the laser cutter. So Christo, can you just talk a little bit about your background? You're also an engineer.
I am an engineer, yes. I'm a mechanical engineer by education and an acoustic engineer by trade.
Right, okay.
I've been a volunteer here for 2 months.
Yes.
Yes, and I was part of the Changemakers event here, which was an amazing event.
And your team came up with a brilliant solution.
I think so. I was very happy with it.
Yeah, so Christo, tell us a little bit about the laser cutter, how it works, what it does, and the difference that it makes.
Okay, so the laser cutter is one of my favourite bits of gear in the in the workshop here. So obviously it uses a laser and it can cut a range of products from acrylic, plastics, cardboard, foam, and like many of the new bits of equipment here, it uses computer generated files. So it really enables us to cut really precise, accurate, repeatable products that are really high quality and provide our clients with wonderful solutions.
So tell us a little bit about the tabletops that you've been doing.
Yeah, okay, so a lot of our clients are children, and one of the solutions we came up with, the laser cutter, was to create an acrylic tabletop.
Yes.
That fits on our adaptable solution. So it helps with using communication cards, but it's also possible for the child to draw on. Yep. And super easy to clean off. So
yes. I'm looking forward to one with either noughts and crosses or snakes and ladders or something underneath. So.
Exactly. We'll see what we can come up with.
Okay, thanks, Christo. So, Your Excellency, Mr. Wilson, I'm just wondering if you've got any questions about the laser cutter or for Christo.
Are they simple to use by a hobbyist?
They are somewhat, yes, somewhat. It's pretty easy to get the file from the computer to the laser cutter itself. In terms of the settings and the power and the speed, we've had a bit of a play around with that.
Yes.
Some successful, but once it's all set up and we've got a good understanding of how to use it, it's really quite simple. Bring the file in, send it to the laser cutter, and hit go.
So as a user myself, Christo, I think in answer to Mr. Wilson's question, it's an awful lot easier to use than the CNC router. The setup of the CNC router is quite complicated.
It's really quite simple.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm speaking very selfishly, you see. I'm looking at in my dreamlike mind, looking at a workshop that I'm in with all of those pieces of equipment. It would be wonderful. Workshop heaven.
Yeah.
And Christo, this is not a question, but I wanted to just make an observation, and that actually goes to all of the engineers that we've seen. You smiled. Your smile when you're asked what you thought of this, that you thought it was very good. I'm a great believer in saying, credit where credit's due. Just take all the accolades. It's wonderful.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Christo.
We've got one question that's come in from the Zoom broadcast. I think it's come from GIO.
Okay,
so
yes.
The question is, and I think this is a tough one, so you can handle it.
Okay.
What is your most memorable, unique solution, and what did it mean to the client?
I think there are so many actually, but if I've got to choose one, I do think that the saddle that we talked about earlier is really a standout for me. What the governor didn't mention is that the young woman in question actually was very much in despair when she couldn't ride a horse and actually felt that she didn't necessarily want to continue on. And what it was able to do to her is bring new joy to her life and actually make her want to continue to live. So I think that it wasn't the most kind of technological project, but in terms of the impact that it had on Ashton's life, it was just incredible. So that's the one that I would mention.
Thank you. Well, we're coming to a close now of the formal proceedings. I want to thank our joint patrons again for attending. We really appreciate your support and the interest that you've taken in everything that we're trying to accomplish here. The opening of the facility is not the end of the journey. We think it's the start. We don't stand still. We're contributing to university study on the therapeutic benefits of our equipment, new product designs, expanding regionally, in particular to Wagga Wagga and Port Macquarie. If you're watching either live or later on and you've got some clever ideas, we can help you use them to change lives. We're always on the lookout for new volunteers, and you don't have to be well, speaking for myself, you don't have to be an engineer of any sort.
No.
You don't have to be a Rolls-Royce engineer. If you've got clever ideas, we'd love to work with you. If you're living with a disability and you have a goal that you can achieve with the right technology, please do get in touch. Our fantastic volunteers and staff are here ready to work with you. We're always publishing our latest work on social media, and so follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube to see the very latest. Again, I think before we close, I'd like to again honour Lynette Morby, who made all this possible, and the remarkable team here at TAD that conceived and constructed such a brilliant facility. Thank you to everyone that's attended here remotely, and we look forward to the day when we can welcome you back here in person. Thanks again.
Thank you.